Top of the morning to you, my people. Top of the morning. Father Paul again. And listen, there is a saying, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. And there's another saying, you want the truth, but you can't handle the truth. The latter statement is true for the population of any country. This is the reason why they elect other people to take care of their affairs. They don't want to be able, they don't want to have to deal with the things, some of the hard things that have to be done in this world. And so they give up that, abdicate that responsibility to our government. That's pretty much what happens. That's why we elect governments. And at the end of the day, we can turn around really and blame somebody for whatever is our lot in life. You know, that's one of the harsh realities. But I'll tell you this much: this business about power corrupts, power corrupting absolutely is a most interesting one. Because I find it hard to wrap my head around this idea that the Honorable Justice Seymour Panton, with what many would call a stellar career in law, and if it is less than stellar, it has only come to light during this business of the Integrity Commission. And it is always tough to have to question a man's integrity at the end of his career, because what it does, it casts a dark shadow on his earlier years. And people now start to think to themselves, well, I mean, the thing said this was a good brother, but now you start to look back on the career, on the decisions made, and you start to wonder about some of the decisions, and you wonder to yourself, was it possible that that decision that he made, that boy accepted then, is it possible that it was tainted? It's kind of like, you know, you have a in a relationship, and everything are going good, and for years, it was so funny. I was reading an article the other day of a guy who divorced his wife of 77 years because he found out that she had cheated on him 60 years before. And you say, I mean, after all this time, see, this thing called trust. Trust is like your favorite glass or mug. It's a go on good enough till you drop it. And suddenly it is no more. And so it is with trust. Once broken, it's very, very hard to replace. You take, for instance, you know, most things that you do in life, They require a certain amount of effort. And in the twinkling of an eye, that whole thing, you know, can just come crashing down. A fraction of the time that it took to put it together. So this, I believe, is what is happening with Justice Panton, because this Integrity Commission business has called into question his decision-making capacity. Now, it is also, you know, seen at times that as people get older, it's like they gather water. You know, as they say, and they behave in ways that are contrary to what you have known of them in the past. I mean, all I ever heard about this guy was good things. And when he was appointed to the Integrity Commission as the chairman, I thought to myself, boy, we're after a good start. But with all the things that are coming out, it make you wonder. And don't think we forget about Greg Christie, because the stellar work that he did as contractor general, which of course though, in hindsight now looking back at it, the contractor general made quite a few pronouncements. Very few people went to prison or were really charged for anything. And I guess he would say, well, contractor general's office, you know, had bark but no bite. But not so with the Integrity Commission, because here was a body that was set up in 2017. Well, yes, and came into law shortly after the act was passed. And, you know, Malahoo Ford kept pressing the conversation to say, listen, there are certain aspects of this law, you know, just not right. Just not right. And the pressure on the government to pass this thing, because, you know, we need something. Not realizing that the people who are saying we need something had an ulterior motive, knew that they were going to weaponize this thing and use it to bring down the same government. This always causes me to go back to this business of those MOUs that were signed by Dr. Peter Phillips, because it is those MOUs, those secret MOUs, that were used to bring down the JLP in 2011, causing a good prime minister to have to resign. And that resignation caused other things to take place. You know? And you look at these things and you say to yourself, why are we looking back at it, you know? It's always easier. You can always connect the dots, like any chart. You know, whether you've been trading in stocks or foreign exchange, you know, it's always you can always see from a historical chart, boy, this thing was going up then, or boy, this thing was going down, and boy, if you had bought it here, you could have sold it there, and if you sold it there, you could have bought it here, and yada yada yada. But that's hindsight is 2020. So this is what we get. We don't know real crystal ball. we were talking about we had stir the tea leaves and we are trying to see what we can see. You know, it's we are trying to forecast and put the dots together and see how this thing really go. But we see how things set up can be weaponized because those MOUs were weaponized against the JLP. As you know, put strength in the words of KD Knight for him to be able to say, his famous statement of pack your bags and go. Huh? Right? But you were bringing down a man based on something that he didn't even know. But there's one thing that nobody really looked at in that situation. Who was the government of the day while Dudos was getting large? Who was giving him contracts? Could not be the opposition because they weren't in power. But nobody look at that. They just look at the fact that Dudos lived in Tivoli in West Kingston, Tivoli Gardens, and yada yada yada. But nobody ever look at the fact that where did he get the contracts? Where did he get government contracts from? Who gave him government contracts? It could not be the opposition. The opposition can't give out nothing. So I find that ironic. I try pointing that out to people and it's like, I don't know. I think sometimes that people just feel silly that they didn't see it themselves. Fast forward now to present day. And we see the weaponization. The weaponization of the Integrity Commission. Set up and passed in a manner because government had a slim majority based on the 2016 elections. So they had a slim majority and about a wiggle room. And to somewhat, appease the hounds at the gate, they went along with this. And this is why, when you give people positions, and it's especially if they're qualified people in the positions, one should really work with them. If they listen, if you know that they're not really that qualified, and then the position understand. But when they're qualified and they have, track record, you must listen to them, man. Malahu was warning us about this IC. She was warning us about this IC. And we didn't heed. But, they say, sometimes these things happen to show us really what is what, who is doing what, and we're seeing it. And so this leads me to question again. So here was the goodly Justice Panton with a stellar career, or what appeared so. What would cause him to act in a manner as we are seeing he did? What would cause him, having spent a life on the bench as a judge where impartiality is supposed to be the hallmark of your service. What would cause him to feel as though this business with the IC, the actions being taken, was a righteous cause? And I use righteous because when he appeared before the oversight committee, he proceeded to make mention of his credentials of being a lay preacher and all of that. I guess it's the same way the Catholic Church felt that blessing implements of war, you're going sending people to go and slaughter other people, or you're sending people to go and capture other people to be used, and you felt justified, felt this was a righteous cause. Of course, years later, we come back and, oh, we're so sorry. Is that what it is? Another one of those righteous cause? Justice Panton, what could have been the enticement? And if there's no enticement, was it the absolute power that resided in the IC that corrupted you? Because the way the IC is set up, it is as if though they're not answerable to anyone. Not even, it seems, to the people who pay them, which is the taxpayer of the country. The billions they're spending, means they get some grant money. But it appears to me the lion's share of that budget comes from the taxpayer, awarded to them by the government, the very government that they're trying, it seems, to bring down. And I'm sure they will argue that no such thing. We're not trying to bring in the government. It is corruption that we're fighting. But is it really corruption you're fighting? Because when it comes to light, that after much hullabaloo and the timing in the release of documents and tabling of documents, and then letters to follow up hinting at some form of corruption, whether documents are tabled as soon as you send them, or they're held, or they're trying to get understanding on all of these things, you quickly jump out with statements. And then I think the biggest one was that statement that Justice Panton made in the Parliament, saying that he brought his own water. He's a guest in the Parliament, the highest lawmaking body. And this is the insult that he felt he should hurl at the members sitting in the Parliament, that there must be something in the water, and so he doesn't trust it. Is it the power that has corrupted? The absolute power. Is that the source of the corruption in the Integrity Commission? And then when we bring alongside the business of the Pickergill Committee and how it works, putting your operatives in various places so as to aid your cause, whether to slow walk a situation or to speed up a situation. I mean, seriously, when you look at these things, it causes you to question. At one point, I was thinking to myself, could it be that they promised to make him, president of the new republic? Or the next governor general? Is that what they had promised him? That's what the thoughts I was having. But then, when I went back to the statement about absolute power corrupts absolutely, it caused me to think to myself, oh my goodness, maybe there was no need for enticement. Just the absolute power was enough to do the job. Yes. And after his time had ended, and I thought to myself, okay, so I guess he's on some cruise, European cruise, take a time off. Here he comes back to make a statement regarding the annual report of 2024 to 2025, and to find tucked away at somewhere around page 170, to find tucked away a statement that says the Prime Minister, the investigation against the Prime Minister has been closed. And that was not made public in a statement so as to remove this cloud from over the Prime Minister. And you say that you are for the good of the country. The Prime Minister represents the people of Jamaica. He's our lobbyist around the world. And our only reason for wanting to taint him, to make his position untenable, is to remove him from office. But why would you need to do that when we have a mechanism to do that, which is called elections? And what is even more devious is that your Justice Panton was not elected to the position of chairman. He was appointed. He was appointed to the position. Nobody elected him. But you would take part in a devious plot to bring the elected official down. sometimes I'm at a loss for words to understand how and why anyone would do this. And that when in the using the principle of fairness, that okay, so you did an investigation and you found nothing, and then to add insult to injury, there's a forensic audit paid for by the taxpayer again, because whatever money the IC spends is taxpayer money, because even the grant money that they get is from taxpayers of the country that gave the grant money. Nothing is free in this world. So it all comes down to taxpayer money. And you spend taxpayer money to pay for an audit because you didn't think a good enough job would be done by the local bodies, TAJRFID or MOCA. Huh? So you went outside the country, used taxpayers' money to pay for a report, and then you're trying to tell us that we can't see the report? Okay, fine. Let's say we can't see the report because, well, Parliament is in recess and you have to table it first. But when you were sending the annual report, seeing that the case was closed, you could have put it there. Oh, but then you're saying, oh, the matter, because of the judicial review that the Prime Minister is doing, technically it tied it up and the matter is sub judice, so you can't put anything out there, because once you table it, it becomes a part of public record. And so, yeah, this may be problematic to the case. I don't see how, because all the other information that has been put in other reports revealing the financial dealings of the Prime Minister, to include even his parents and what is in their bank accounts, that have him as a beneficiary, as is required when you open an account. They want you to have a beneficiary, because having this beneficiary prevents, if in the event that you die, this money doesn't go to the state. You end up in probate. So yeah, you put a beneficiary, whom at the time may be a child, a minor, who may not even know that their name is on the account. So you go through all of this. So couldn't you have included the summary? Because the summary doesn't go into details. The summary of that investigation would simply say whether or not what the conclusion was. Why not include the summary? And then people trying to use, nationwide, trying to use access to information requests to get information. And the IC just brushing them off, giving them all kind of legal mumbo jumbo. Well, not really mumbo jumbo, but it just so happens that things have worked in their favor to keep them from having to release any information. But okay, so we now know that the case is closed because of the annual report. Which now leads us to the current chairman of the IC, Justice Lawrence-Beswick, has the same absolute power, corrupted you so early in the day. And you showed your inklings of corruption because when certain things were pointed out to you, you made mention in your response to the leader of government business and the leader of government business in the Senate to say that you need cogent. They must come with the information instead of you doing an investigation within the IC. We must present you, they must present you with this cogent information. Which, hey Karen, I must ask you this question. Miss Karen, beg pardon. Miss Karen, I must ask you this question. Has Justice Lawrence-Beswick replied to you, to your letter? What's the next move if you've got no reply? Because she's acting apparently just like Justice Panton, like having no regard. Like you don't need to talk to we, the citizens of the country. Karen, we need an update, man. Miss Karen, we need an update. We need an update on your actions because, you know, we love to talk when you step up. You know, we love the talk there. But we need to see some action now. Can't, you know, we can't I call PNP like, we need to act JLP like, you know, this matter here, which is action do that. Huh? Not a bag of mouth. So is it that the absolute power vested in the people at the IC, is that what has now corrupted Justice Lawrence-Beswick? And the way how things are going, I mean, would you really blame me for having questions? Because the actions of the people makes them suspect. And if the Prime Minister were not a strong back individual based on the way we have seen him operate, he would have folded already. There's a saying, to thine own self be true. And the way I see it, it seems that the Prime Minister is being true, has been true to himself. So therefore, allegations don't move him. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So now we'll watch to see what is going to be the next move. of the Integrity Commission? What is going to be the next move of the Integrity Commission?